Hello, hello.
Hello, how are you? Thank you
Good.
for making time for us.
And of course, my dog, who has been sleeping like a baby all morning, just woke up. So you,
We-
perfect bad timing.
So,
You may hear her participating every now and then. Let me give her some extra treats. Wait a minute. We'll see. We'll see if she keeps quiet. If she doesn't, I'll pick her up, and it'll be fine.
yeah,
But anyway, just want you to be ready for that.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Steve, for making time for this interview for Radio Benelux, which airs in Belgium and online. So we have listeners also from the Netherlands and from other countries abroad. My name is Jos Westenberg, and this is Muriel Kleisterlee, and we are guests in the radio show as well. Congratulations with the book. We loved reading it. It was hilarious sometimes and sometimes very insightful. And your friends, Jimmy Barnes and Bruce, they made great plays out of their biography books. So, and you wrote a great play and produced for the Rascals. So the question is, can we expect also a Broadway play from Unrequited Infatuations?
Well, I hadn't thought about that. I don't think so. I'm not so much a solo guy. I'm a band guy. So those other guys have a solo personality in them. I don't think I do. So, maybe we'll discover it one of these days. But as of now, there's no plans for that. No.
Where did your interest in making radio come from?
Growing up with radio, loving it. We did have a series of fantastic TV shows on at the same time for a couple of years. We had 7 or 8 rock and roll TV shows on, believe it or not, during the week. But radio was always first. It was it's the medium that I fell in love with first, and still am in love with. There's something special about radio that is different than TV in that it is more interactive, huh? I mean, it requires your imagination. You hear the voice coming at you out of the darkness, and you interact with your imagination, as opposed to TV, which is you're more passive, of course. It's all just coming at you. But radio is much more interactive that way, and always has been, and requires imagination and requires participation. And it always has been my favorite medium.
And we also have a couple of questions about your book. In your book, you wrote a little bit about your stepfather, William Van Zandt. He was of Dutch descent. Do you remember anything about his Dutch ancestry? Did he or his family have any typical Dutch habits or customs that you may have picked up when you were a child?
I don't know. I don't think too much. He was a very interesting guy, very stoic, very, very quiet. And that may be a Dutch characteristic, in a certain way. But he was also very, very, very tough. He was an ex-Marine, and very much of that generation who had their sort of uncompromising view of patriotism, which I think was instilled in me, even though my father was a Goldwater Republican, which was the beginning of the conservative movement in my country, which has now been completely perverted. And my father would not recognize the Republican Party anymore.
Okay.
But we had our early, I recognize that I had a different view of politics from my father pretty early on. We became the generation gap of the 60s, but that sense of patriotism actually got deeper in me than maybe that generation would care to recognize. I spent most of my life in politics, being critical of my government to make sure we return to the path of the ideals that our founding fathers intended, which was different than accepting the government no matter what they said or did. You know, that's the difference. But it was the same degree of patriotism, just differently applied. Interestingly enough, I mean, his mother was from the South, South Carolina, and so it was more of a Southern. There was a Southern aspect to his side of the family. I think as much as the Dutch part, So I grew up visiting Nana Van Zandt once a month or so, and was introduced to grits. So that's what I remember. I don't remember so much Dutch cuisine as I do this Southern cuisine. So,
okay. In the book you are also very honest and seem not to hold anything back. And you mentioned also some arguments that you had even with Bruce. By the way, we still thank you for trying to get him to play the full River album on the last tour.
I was so pissed off at that. I was so disappointed with that. I couldn't believe it. It was something that you guys deserve to see.
Yeah, we would have been very happy to see it. You describe your role as a musical advisor diminished after the River album, and that even led to some arguments that you left the E Street Band, and that gave you the opportunity also to pursue a solo career, to pursue a acting career, become socially active. So looking back now at it, would that temporary departure from E Street Band be a blessing or a curse for you?
Yes, that's the big question and the big revelation, really, of the book to me, because I don't look back very often. I don't really think about these things too much or analyze them. But going back and writing the book, you had to. You had to transport yourself back to that moment and try and remember the environment and what you were thinking, because you want to communicate that in the book in order for the audience to understand it. And in doing that, it was a revelation to me, because all these years I think to myself, I wish I could have done both. I wish I could have stayed in the band and done, all of these other things, and when you go back, and you start to analyze it, you realize that, of course, that was ridiculous and it could not have happened. So in my mind, the ending of my life, which I thought at the time, I wasn't just changing jobs, leaving the E Street Band. It was the end of my life as I knew it, And I didn't see it as an opportunity, opportunities for all of these things you mentioned. It looked like no choice. It hit me on the flight to South Africa. So the timing ended up being actually crucial, I think, when my entire life ended, and now what was in front of me was South Africa, And at that moment, I went from being an artist/journalist to an artist, journalist, activist, and that was and that was strictly out of circumstance, really. It wasn't a plan of mine. I never intended to get involved in these issues. I was just writing about them. And suddenly I got very involved in that one because I had nothing else. I had no other things in my life that was possible. My career was over as I knew it, and I had no plan B. So that extra energy and extra fearlessness that I acquired from ending my life, my fear went with it. I suddenly, I was never a good flyer, and suddenly I lost all fear of flying, just like that. And I think that fearlessness helped my research go a little deeper than perhaps I would have had those circumstances not been the way they were. So it turned out to be all these years, I really did consider it screwing around with destiny, messing with destiny. But when you look back now, I think I've accepted the fact that I was in fact fulfilling destiny.
Yeah.
And on your solo records, you have been very engaged in political and social issues. If you would make another solo record like that again in the future, what would be the most urgent cause for you now?
Well, the two new albums I did in the previous 3 years of the quarantine, Soulfire was just a collection of songs that I'd written for other people.
Mm-hmm.
And then surprisingly, like most of my life, which is a surprise, Summer of Sorcery came to me as a gift from the gods. And I decided, well, so I'm surprisingly coming back into the music business, which I did not expect to do. And reigniting the artist part of me. And I decided, you know what, I don't want to make this an autobiographical record for the first time. And I don't want to make it a political record for the first time, because, in the 80s, when I was doing nothing but politics, all of the politics were hidden behind the scenes. There was not, you didn't have that sort of 24-hour news thing going on. And you had Ronald Reagan playing everybody's grandfather, cowboy, happy-go-lucky, Morning in America, which was, of course, a complete fraud, but it worked because there he was behind the scenes, an entire criminal empire, committing crimes all over the world and putting us in debt forever. Which now we've taken to some ridiculous level of debt, but we had no debt for 200 years before Ronald Reagan. So all those things I thought needed to have a light shown on them, and then comes Trump, and they're bragging about putting kids in cages to deter immigration. Now, what am I going to say about that? There's nothing you can say that they don't say themselves. They were committing crimes in broad daylight. And to this day, none of them have paid. There's been no accountability as far as I'm concerned. They'll arrest a black man for selling cigarettes on the street, but if a white guy wants to overthrow the government, that's okay. No problem. So I decided, there's nothing I can say politically during the Trump years that it was just redundant. Now, I mean, the issue now. Look, I wish Joe Biden and the Democrats had a little bit more energy and a little bit more urgency, and a little bit recognition that we are in a war. And only one side is fighting it. Okay, we have a really big problem in America right now. I don't know how closely you're following it, but we are about 2 seconds away from losing our democracy. And I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm not exaggerating. All right, we're very close, because these Republicans have now completely lost all interest in being, no interest in democracy anymore, no interest in equality, no interest in science. It's all, these political football teams, which I have been against my entire life. I don't like the party system. I've been talking against the party system since I began. I have a song called I Am a Patriot, which is all about not being part of the party system. This is one of the many things I have in common with a guy named George Washington, who talked about, beware of the parties that are starting to happen when he left office, Anyway, now we have the result of this football team mentality. As long as our team wins, who cares about the justice? Who cares about democracy? Who cares about equality? As long as our football team wins, right? That's what we're engaged with right now. So I wish the Biden had come in like John Kennedy had come in and said, John Kennedy said, we're going to go to the moon in 10 years. Now, when John Kennedy said we're going to the moon in 10 years, it was not an obvious sort of accomplishment. Okay, everybody was like, "What? How on earth are we going to do that?" Right?
Yeah.
Well, I wish Biden had come in and said we're going to be poison free in 10 years.
Yeah,
By 2030, not 2050, 2030. We need to have some urgency when in regards to the environment.
Yeah,
to
exactly.
answer your question the long way, as it is obviously the environment that is the issue right now, on top of democracy and a few other problems we're having, but worldwide. And by the way, the democracy problem is worldwide. It's not just here. I mean, look around the world. I just did 2 world tours,
Yeah.
and the entire planet is in big trouble. I mean, we're having political problems all over the place. It wasn't just the United States and the jerks in the UK who created Brexit. It's also, it's in Hungary, it's in Brazil, it's in Indonesia, it's in Australia. I mean, everywhere you look, there's a problem. It's either nationalism, or it's religious extremism.
Yeah.
And in our case, we got it all. We got nationalism, white supremacy, and religious extremism. Okay, all combined together, right? So we're about 2 inches from becoming Iran over here.
Yeah, it's difficult to be optimistic for the future.
Very, very, very.
But talking about the future, we interviewed Southside Johnny a couple of times, and a few years ago, and he said he was very open to working with you again, to make another Jukes album. That great rock and soul combination, Jersey Shore sound, that you are famous for. But he added, if only Steven has the time for it, which may be a key factor here. But what do you think?
Well, I mean, now that I brought back the Disciples of Soul, it's probably even less likely that I will do that. Who knows? You never know. But I tend to, especially since I've now stopped in my mind writing political music for the first time. Summer of Sorcery was however many songs it was, 12 songs, all of which were fiction. For the first time in my life, I'm writing fiction. Yeah. And it was really quite liberating to do that for the first time. I've never done that in 40 years. It's always been life and death, politics. And so assuming 12 different characters and 12 different songs, or whatever it was a lot of fun, and more similar to what I would write for Southside Johnny. You know what I mean? So
yeah, exactly.
Now it's a little bit difficult to imagine doing that, but who knows?
And you have worked with a lot of great musicians and other people in the music industry. Do you still have wishes for future productions or working with people you admire?
Not really. I don't think about the music too much. Music is one thing that I've done, and I'm proud of it, and I love it. But when I think about production, I think bigger than that. I think TV. I think Broadway. I think where music is an element of the bigger production. But what interests me is the bigness of it. The Broadway show that I did was my favorite thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
And I wish I could do that more often. I wish I could do live events, because I love all of the aspects of a live event. I love the music, the story, the production, the design, the sets, the choreography, you name it. I love putting all of those pieces together. It's my favorite thing. And I've only done it once my whole life, so I wish I could do more of that, or to some lesser extent, TV, TV production is also a lot of fun. I want to get back on TV. I really do enjoy that also.
And do you want to go back to acting again?
Yeah, I miss it. I have several completed scripts. I have many treatments and many ideas. And if Netflix wanted to, I would go back to Lilyhammer, which I'm quite proud of. And we only did 24 shows. It was the first Netflix show, which people don't realize. And it didn't get a whole lot of marketing at the time. I think more people have discovered it during the pandemic, during the quarantine, than viewed it the first time around.
Yes. Yes.
So because I'm getting lots of comments about it over the past year and a half. So I would like to go back to that because there's unfinished business there for sure. Because the show was so well conceived by the two writers who conceived it, created it. It can go anywhere. It's just a crazy premise that was really the first international show. And I'm very proud of the fact that it's the only European show that I can think of ever in history that was not remade for America. Everything gets remade for some stupid reason, mostly because Americans don't like subtitles.
Yeah.
But they accepted Lilyhammer. Just the experiment we did, which was very effective, was just having the lead character speak English.
Yeah.
And the premise was, he understood Norwegian but didn't speak it. And so just having that one guy speaking English was enough for the audience to accept, the premise. And I think that's instructive. I'd like to do that. If not returning to Lilyhammer, I have one show that's set in France. I have one show that's set in Italy with the same idea of the lead character speaking English, but not speaking the native language, but understanding the native language, which, immediately gets you into that country and also into America. And I like that idea a lot. I'd like to experiment more with that.
Okay.
Do you think you can find the time for that?
That's a very good question. I hope to eventually find the time because I got to get back on TV. I love it. And at the same time, I put together one of the greatest bands in history, the Disciples of Soul, in 2017, 18, 19, for those two albums and those two DVDs, which people can see the show. They can get the DVD of Soulfire or Summer of Sorcery. And that band was a remarkable band, and I would like to keep them together also. But I'm going to give Bruce priority. So if he wants to take the E Street Band out in 22, then I will do that. And that's 2 years of my life. So any TV show, the next TV show you see from me will be 2025.
Okay, well, one final question. Can you tell us the backstory of the inscription that is in the sidewalk next to the Stone Pony in Asbury Park, and with your initials and a message to Bruce?
What is it?
It says, so it's an inscription, "Hey Brucey, Sugar MS." It's not your writing?
What's the message?
Hey Brucey, Sugar MS, and that MS is the Miami Steve. And
Sugar MS.
Yeah, people from the Stone Pony, they said that you wrote that inscription in the sidewalk in the 70s.
In the 70s.
Maybe so. I guess maybe so. I don't remember doing it, and I don't. there's no message. It just says, "Hey Brucey."
That's it.
And then my signature.
Yeah, it's still there.
In other words, I'm just saying hello.
No, that's it. That's it.
Yeah,
Hey, Bruce.
I'm just saying hello. In other words.
Yeah.
Well, what's your question exactly?
If you don't recall it, obviously you don't recall this.
I do not know. I do not recall that. No, but I believe you. I believe it's there.
We found a fun fact to see in the sidewalk, to see this inscription there, and they claimed that you wrote it.
You got me.
Okay, thanks, Steve. We're very appreciated that you spent some time with us. We will talk about the book tomorrow and play your music.
Fantastic. Great.
And we look forward to see you back on the road again.
Yes, I look forward to it also, and great talking to you both.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Steve.
you, Steve.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I am a patriot and I love my country, 'cause my country